The universe was never silent. Even in the vastness of space, where stars hummed their distant songs and planets orbited in quiet solitude, there was always a whisper. To most, it was nothing more than the pulse of the cosmos, natural, indifferent. But to those who truly listened, it was clear. Something was calling from the void. Humans, as curious as they were reckless, first heard the whisper centuries ago. It started as a faint signal, almost imperceptible amidst the static of deep space exploration. But soon, they discovered its source, an ancient artifact floating on the edge of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of any known civilization. The relic was massive, spanning miles across, a perfect sphere made of dark, alien metal. Its surface was covered in strange glyphs that pulsed faintly with energy. The artifact became known as the Sentinel, and the whispers became stronger the closer one approached. No one knew who had built it or what it was for, but one thing was certain: it wasn't dormant. The Sentinel was waiting. Commander Lyra Hale had always been drawn to the unknown. She thrived in the void of space, far from the confines of Earth and its endless conflicts. In the deep, she found peace, but more than that, she found purpose. The Sentinel, which had become her life's obsession, was the final frontier, a mystery that eluded her at every turn. Lyra stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, her ship, as it approached the Sentinel. It had taken years to get clearance for this mission. The Global Council had deemed the artifact too dangerous to explore further after several failed expeditions. Ships had gone missing, and those that returned had come back different. The few surviving crew members spoke of strange visions, of voices calling to them in their sleep. But Lyra was undeterred. She had spent years preparing, gathering the best team, and studying every piece of data available. Now they were finally here. Commander, her first officer, Lieutenant Jonah Sato, broke the silence, his voice steady. "We're approaching the perimeter of the Sentinel's energy field. Take us in slowly," Lyra replied, her eyes fixed on the massive structure growing larger in the viewport. The Sentinel loomed before them, its dark surface absorbing all light. It was unlike anything Lyra had ever seen, impossibly old, yet humming with life. "Any readings on the energy field?" Lyra asked. Jonah glanced at his console. "It's fluctuating but stable. There's definitely some kind of power source active inside. We're also picking up faint signals, similar to the whispers from before, but stronger now that we're closer." Lyra nodded. "Prepare for docking. We're going in." As the Valkyrie slowly descended toward the artifact, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be different. She had been on countless expeditions, seen wonders beyond imagination, but the Sentinel, it felt alive, and she had the unsettling sense that it had been waiting for her. The airlock hissed as the boarding party stepped out onto the Sentinel's surface. The alien metal felt cold beneath their boots, and the pulsing energy from the glyphs made the air around them vibrate with a low hum. Lyra led the way, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. Behind her were Jonah, Dr. Eleanor Voss, the mission's lead scientist, and two heavily armed security officers, Davis and Reynolds. "We're standing on history," Dr. Voss whispered, her eyes wide as she examined the glyphs. "This is unlike anything we've ever encountered." Lyra's voice was firm. "Stay focused. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." As they moved deeper into the Sentinel, the whispers grew louder in their minds. Lyra could hear it now, a soft voice, speaking in a language she didn't understand, yet somehow it felt familiar. She glanced at the others. They seemed unaffected, at least for now. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted. The surface of the Sentinel rippled like liquid metal, and a doorway materialized ahead of them, leading into the heart of the artifact. Lyra hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. "We proceed with caution," she ordered. The team entered the dark corridor, the walls lined with more of the strange glyphs. The deeper they went, the more Lyra felt a presence, something ancient, watching them. They were not alone. The inner chamber was enormous, far larger than the exterior of the Sentinel had suggested. At the center of the room was a massive pedestal, and upon it sat a glowing orb, pulsating with the same energy as the glyphs. Lyra felt drawn to it, as if the orb was calling to her specifically. Before she could reach it, the room came alive. Lights flickered, and the walls shifted. A voice, clear and commanding, echoed through the chamber in a language none of them had heard before. "Identify yourselves," it demanded. The team froze. Lyra's heart raced. "We are explorers," she said cautiously. "From Earth. We mean no harm." There was a long pause, and then the voice spoke again, this time in perfect English. "Earth, you are not the first to come here, but you are the first to make it this far." "Who are you?" Lyra asked, her voice steady. "I am the Sentinel," the voice replied. "I was created to guard the knowledge of the universe, to protect it from those who are not worthy. You have been tested, and now you must make a choice." "A choice?" Jonah asked, stepping forward. "What kind of choice?" The Sentinel's voice grew quieter, more ominous. "The knowledge contained within me is powerful, beyond anything your species can comprehend. Can unite your worlds or destroy them. But it comes at a price." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the glowing orb. "What is the price?" The voice echoed in her mind, alone now, speaking directly to her. "The one who claims this knowledge must remain here, forever. To leave with it is to unleash a force that will consume your galaxy. Choose wisely, Commander Lyra Hale. Your destiny lies before you." Lyra stood before the orb, the weight of the decision crushing her. She could feel the knowledge within it, a vast, limitless understanding of the universe, of life, of time itself. It was intoxicating, pulling her closer. But the cost? To remain here, cut off from everything and everyone she knew. Jonah stepped beside her, his voice a whisper. "Lyra, we can't take that risk. We don't know what this thing is capable of." Dr. Voss, however, was entranced. "This is the discovery of a lifetime. We can't just leave it here." Lyra's mind raced. The whispers grew louder, filling her thoughts with images of what could be. Galaxies united, wars ended, diseases cured. But she also saw destruction, chaos, civilizations collapsing under the weight of knowledge they weren't ready for. The Sentinel spoke again, its voice cold and calculating. "The choice is yours, Commander. But choose wisely, for once the knowledge is claimed, there is no turning back." Lyra took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at her team, at Jonah, at the orb. The future of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And then she made her choice. The moment Lyra touched the orb, everything around her vanished. Gone was the sterile cold of the Sentinel's chamber, replaced by the sensation of floating in a limitless sea of stars. She was no longer on the Valkyrie or standing among her team. She was somewhere else entirely. She could hear distant voices, like echoes from the past and future colliding at once. The stars pulsed with knowledge, each one a glowing fragment of the universe's secret. Then the voice of the Sentinel returned, not as an external force but as something within her mind. "You have made your choice, Lyra Hale. The universe will bend before you, but at what cost?" Images flashed before her eyes. Planets burning, entire civilizations brought to their knees by the overwhelming power of the knowledge she now possessed. But there were also glimpses of beauty, of peace, of a united galaxy flourishing in ways she never thought possible. The visions were overwhelming, and Lyra gasped for breath, her body trembling under the weight of it all. But the more she tried to focus on one image, the faster they slipped away, leaving only the cryptic words of the Sentinel echoing in her mind. Suddenly, she was back in the chamber. Her team stood around her, their faces a mixture of concern and anticipation. "Lyra?" Jonah's voice cut through the fog in her mind. "Are you okay?" She blinked, feeling the cold surface of the Sentinel beneath her fingertips. But something was different now. She wasn't the same. She had seen too much. "I'm fine," she lied, her voice steady. But the truth was far more complicated. She wasn't sure what had just happened, but something inside her had changed permanently. The Valkyrie left the Sentinel behind, but it had left its mark. Lyra kept quiet about the true extent of what she had seen, about the immense power now coursing through her veins. She could feel it, just under the surface like an untapped reservoir. But she was afraid to use it. What if the Sentinel was right? What if the knowledge inside her could destroy everything? The crew returned to normal operations, but things were far from normal. There was a strange energy in the air, as if the very fabric of space around them had shifted. Jonah, ever perceptive, noticed the change in Lyra. "You're not telling me everything, are you?" he asked one evening, as they shared a quiet moment in the observation deck, watching a distant nebulous swirl in hues of blue and purple. Lyra hesitated, then sighed. "It's not that I don't want to, Jonah. It's just, I'm still trying to understand it myself." Jonah looked at her, his eyes searching. "You've always been able to handle the unknown, but this feels different. What did the Sentinel show you?" "Everything?" Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. "It showed me everything." Before Jonah could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. They both shot to their feet as the Valkyrie's AI, Vera, interrupted them. "Commander Hale, we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Something catastrophic has happened." The transmission from Earth was garbled, the signal weak. But what they could make out was enough to send a chill through the crew. Massive explosions, unidentified alien fleet, attacks on major cities. Lyra's heart raced. They had barely left the Sentinel's orbit, and already the galaxy was unraveling. "Vera, patch us through to the source of the signal," Lyra ordered. The screen blinked to life, and a shaky video feed of Earth's surface filled the bridge. Massive ships, alien in design, hovered above Earth's atmosphere, firing down at the planet. The sky was a chaotic swirl of smoke and flames, and Lyra could see that several major cities were under siege. Lyra's hands clenched into fists as she watched the devastation unfold. These weren't just random attacks, they were calculated, systematic. Whoever was behind this wasn't here to negotiate. "Can you identify the attackers?" Jonah asked, his voice tight with urgency. Vera processed for a moment, then responded. "The ships match no known alien species in the galactic database. They appear to be new." Lyra felt a sickening realization wash over her. The Sentinel. It had warned her of the power she now held, the power that could destroy the galaxy. Was this part of the cost? "We have to help Earth," Jonah said, turning to Lyra. Lyra nodded. "Set course for Earth. Maximum speed." As the Valkyrie's engines roared to life, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Whatever these new aliens wanted, they weren't here by accident. They knew exactly what they were doing, and somehow, Lyra suspected that her encounter with the Sentinel was connected. The alien fleet's attack on Earth was only the beginning. As the Valkyrie sped through space, distress calls poured in from across the galaxy. Human colonies, alien worlds, and space stations all under siege by the same mysterious force. Lyra, now burdened with the knowledge of the Sentinel, knew that something far greater was at play. The attack wasn't just an invasion. It was a coordinated effort to reshape the galaxy, and she suspected the Sentinel's ancient creators were involved. But there was little time to ponder the deeper mysteries. The Galactic Council, an alliance of humans and several alien species, was convening an emergency meeting on the neutral world of Talakri, a planet known for its advanced diplomacy and security. Lyra and her crew were summoned. Their first task, to uncover the identity of the attackers and form a plan to stop them. Talakri's skies were a shimmering cascade of golden clouds as the Valkyrie descended into the heart of the council chambers. The tension in the air was palpable, as representatives from a dozen species gathered in the Great Hall. Lyra stood at the head of the human delegation, her eyes scanning the room. The council was on edge. These weren't just isolated attacks anymore. They were the beginning of a war. A figure stepped forward, a tall, ethereal alien with flowing robes and eyes that glowed faintly with energy. This was Vrixia, the chief ambassador of the Siraxi, a species known for their ancient wisdom and powerful telepathic abilities. "We are facing an enemy unlike any we have encountered before," Vrixia began, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. These invaders possess technology far beyond our own. Their ships are impenetrable, their weapons devastating. And they do not speak. They only destroy. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. We believe these attacks are connected to an ancient force, one that predates even the Galactic Council. We encountered an artifact known as the Sentinel, which hinted at the existence of a race capable of reshaping the galaxy itself. Murmurs spread through the room. Vrixia's glowing eyes locked onto Lyra's. If what you say is true, then we are not just fighting for our survival. We are fighting for the future of all sentient life. As the Galactic Council debated their course of action, Lyra felt a nagging sense of foreboding. There was something familiar about these invaders, something she couldn't quite place. The memories from the Sentinel still buzzed in her mind, flashes of ancient wars and unimaginable technology. Suddenly, the chamber's lights flickered. The great hall trembled as the sound of something massive descending upon Talakri echoed through the walls. Gasps and shouts filled the room, and every species present turned their eyes to the sky. "They've found us," Vrixia said, her voice barely audible but filled with dread. Lyra rushed to a nearby viewport. Above the planet, dark shapes filled the skies. Massive alien ships, the same ones that had attacked Earth. The invaders were here, and Talakri, the most secure planet in the galaxy, was under siege. "Prepare the defenses," Lyra shouted, her heart racing. As she and her team scrambled to their posts, the alien fleet began its assault. Beams of energy rained down from the sky, striking the planet's surface with pinpoint precision. Talakri's defense grid activated, sending streams of plasma toward the invading ships. But it was clear the aliens were far more advanced than anything the Council could muster. The chamber was in chaos, representatives fleeing in all directions. But Lyra wasn't about to run. She had faced the impossible before and survived. This was no different. "Get the Valkyrie ready," she ordered Jonah through her comms. "We're going up there." As the Valkyrie rocketed toward the alien fleet, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this attack. These invaders weren't just here to destroy. They were after something important. Lyra sat in the captain's chair, her fingers tapping the armrest. Vera scanned the alien ships. "Look for anything unusual." The AI processed her request, and within seconds, the results appeared on the screen. One ship stood out, a massive vessel at the center of the fleet, its design more intricate than the others, almost ceremonial. "There," Lyra said, pointing to the screen. "That's their command ship." Jonah glanced at her. "What's your plan? We can't just take on their entire fleet." Lyra smiled grimly. "We're not going to fight them head-on. We're going to sneak aboard and find out what they want." The Valkyrie's stealth systems engaged, and the ship slipped through the chaos, avoiding detection as it approached the alien flagship. As they neared the colossal vessel, Lyra felt the familiar tingle of the Sentinel's power stir within her. Whatever was happening here, it was tied to the ancient knowledge she now possessed. "Prepare for boarding," she ordered, her voice calm despite the danger. "This ends today." Inside the alien command ship, the atmosphere was suffocating. Dark, twisting corridors pulsed with an eerie light, and the air was thick with the hum of advanced technology. Lyra led her team deeper into the ship, her senses on high alert. The further they went, the more certain she became that this was no ordinary invasion. As they reached the core of the ship, they came face to face with the invaders for the first time. They were tall, with elongated limbs and smooth, metallic skin that shimmered with energy. Their eyes were hollow, glowing orbs of light, and they moved with a grace that was almost otherworldly. "These aren't just soldiers," Lyra whispered, her pulse quickening. "There's something more, something ancient." The aliens didn't attack immediately. Instead, they stood motionless, as if waiting for something. Lyra felt the weight of their gaze on her, and for a moment, it was as if they could see straight into her soul. And then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, a being unlike any she had ever seen. It was taller than the others, its form shrouded in a cloak of energy. Its face was a mask of smooth, featureless metal, and it radiated power. You are the one, the being said, its voice resonating inside Lyra's mind. The one who carries the knowledge of the Sentinel. Lyra's heart raced. Who are you? Why are you attacking the galaxy? The being tilted its head, as if amused by her question. We are the Anthurian, the firstborn of the stars. We existed long before your kind crawled from the depths of your primitive world. And now we have returned to reclaim what is ours. Reclaim, Lyra repeated, her mind racing. You're after the Sentinel's power. The Anthurian nodded. The Sentinel holds the key to the Ascension, the next step in the evolution of all life. But it has chosen you as its vessel, a mistake that we will soon correct. Before Lyra could react, the Anthurian raised its hand, and the power within her surged, responding to the being's will. Pain shot through her body, and she dropped to her knees, gasping for breath. You cannot control what you do not understand, the Anthurian said, its voice cold and final. You will surrender the power, or your entire galaxy will burn. As Lyra struggled to regain control, the weight of the Sentinel's knowledge pressed down on her. She could feel the Anthurian's power trying to rip it away from her, to claim it for themselves. But she wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. With a surge of willpower, Lyra forced herself to her feet. The Sentinel's power roared to life inside her, pushing back against the Anthurian's assault. Energy crackled around her, and for the first time, she felt like she was in control. You're wrong, she said, her voice steady. I do understand. The Anthurian faltered, its grip on her loosening. Lyra took a step forward, her power building with each moment. This isn't just about the Sentinel, she continued. It's about choice. You've been blinded by your own arrogance, thinking you're the only ones who deserve this power. But the universe isn't yours to control. It belongs to everyone. The Anthurian's eyes flared with anger, but before it could respond, Lyra unleashed a wave of energy that sent the being staggering back. You cannot stop the Ascension, it hissed. It is inevitable. Maybe, Lyra said, her voice firm, but it won't happen on your terms. With a final burst of energy, she shattered the Anthurian's control, sending the being and its followers reeling. The ship trembled around them, the walls cracking as the energy of the Sentinel tore through the vessel. Let's get out of here, Jonah shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm. Together, they raced back to the Valkyrie, the ship's engines roaring to life as they sped away from the collapsing alien fleet. Behind them, the Anthurian command ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking the invaders with it. But Lyra knew this wasn't the end. The Anthurian had spoken of the Ascension, of a future that was still uncertain. And somewhere, deep in the far reaches of the galaxy, she could feel the Sentinel's power stirring once again. The Valkyrie hovered in orbit above Talakri, its crew silently reflecting on the battle they had just survived. The alien fleet had been defeated, but the cost of victory weighed heavily on Lyra's heart. She stared out into the vastness of space, the fading light from the exploding command ship still etched in her mind. You okay? Jonah asked, breaking the silence. Lyra didn't answer immediately. There was so much to process. The Sentinel's power, the Anthurian's warning, the sense that this conflict was far from over. Finally, she nodded. We stopped them this time, she said. But the Ascension is still coming, and I don't think it's something we can stop. Jonah frowned. What do you mean? Lyra turned to face him, her expression solemn. The Anthurian weren't just trying to take control of the galaxy. They were preparing for something bigger, something that involves every living being. The Ascension isn't just their plan. It's a shift in the fabric of reality itself. Jonah looked uneasy. So what now? Lyra sighed, running a hand through her hair. We need to understand what's coming, and we need to make sure we're ready. The galaxy is changing, and we're right in the middle of it. Weeks passed as Lyra and her crew worked tirelessly to decode the remaining fragments of the Sentinel's knowledge. Every piece of information felt like a glimpse into something larger, something far beyond their current understanding. The Ascension was more than just a battle for power. It was the next step in the evolution of all life. But not everyone would survive the transition. The Galactic Council had been shaken by the attack on Talakri, and many feared that the Anthurian were just the beginning. Factions began to form, each with their own interpretation of the Ascension and what it would mean for their worlds. Lyra found herself at the center of it all, a reluctant leader thrust into a role she had never wanted. She could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her, the hopes and fears of countless species resting on her shoulders. But through it all, there was one constant: Jonah. He had stood by her side through everything, his unwavering support giving her the strength to keep going. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to just leave all this behind? Jonah asked one evening, as they sat together in the quiet of the Valkyrie's observation deck. Lyra smiled, though there was a sadness in her eyes. All the time, he looked at her, his gaze softening. We could, just you and me, out there in the stars. For a moment, Lyra allowed herself to imagine it, escaping the chaos, the responsibility, the weight of the universe. Just the two of them, free to explore the unknown without the burden of saving the galaxy. But reality pulled her back. I can't, she said quietly. Not yet. Jonah nodded, understanding. I know, but when this is all over. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. When it's over, we'll find our own path. The peace didn't last. In the depths of the galaxy, a new threat emerged, an ancient force even more powerful than the Anthurian. It had been awakened by the events of the past months, drawn to the power of the Sentinel like a moth to a flame. Lyra and her crew found themselves on a collision course with destiny, racing against time to prevent the galaxy from being torn apart. The final battle loomed on the horizon, and Lyra knew that everything they had fought for would come down to this. The Ascension had begun. As they approached the heart of the galactic storm, Lyra could feel the energy of the Sentinel pulsing within her, stronger than ever before. The power was overwhelming, almost too much to control, but she knew she had no choice. Standing on the bridge of the Valkyrie, Lyra took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. This is it, she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. We end this today. Jonah gave her a reassuring smile, though his eyes were filled with worry. Whatever happens, we face it together. The Valkyrie plunged into the storm, the ship shaking violently as it passed through waves of energy. On the other side, the source of the disturbance came into view. A massive, ancient structure floating in the void, radiating power beyond comprehension. Lyra felt the Sentinel's pull, stronger than ever. This was it, the final confrontation. Inside the ancient structure, Lyra and her team confronted the source of the galaxy's turmoil, a being older than time itself, a remnant of a civilization that had once wielded the power of the Sentinel before it had fallen into ruin. The being, known only as the Architect, had been waiting for millennia for the right moment to reclaim its lost power. It saw the Ascension as the ultimate culmination of its designs, the next step in the evolution of all life. You cannot stop what has already begun, the Architect said, its voice echoing through the chamber. The Ascension is inevitable. You are merely a vessel, a conduit for the power that will reshape the galaxy. Lyra stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. I won't let you destroy everything we've fought for. The Architect's eyes glowed with ancient power. You misunderstand. This is not destruction. It is rebirth. As the battle raged around her, Lyra felt the weight of the Sentinel's power pressing down on her, threatening to consume her. But she couldn't give in. Not now. Not when so much was at stake. With a surge of determination, Lyra tapped into the deepest reserves of the Sentinel's energy, channeling it into a single, focused strike. The Architect staggered, its form flickering as the power of the Sentinel tore through its defenses. You cannot control what you do not understand, the Architect hissed, but Lyra knew better. She had learned that true power didn't come from domination, it came from choice. And she had made her choice. With one final, devastating blow, Lyra shattered the Architect's hold on the galaxy, the power of the Sentinel coursing through her like a tidal wave. The ancient structure began to collapse around them, but Lyra didn't waver. This was the end. A new dawn. When it was over, the galaxy was quiet. The threat of the Ascension had passed, and the Anthurian had retreated to the far reaches of space. Lyra stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, watching as the stars slowly came back into focus. The galaxy was safe for now, but Lyra knew that the universe was always in motion, always changing. There would be new challenges, new threats, and she would be ready for them. As the Valkyrie sailed through the stars, Lyra allowed herself a moment of peace. She had fought for the future of the galaxy, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt hopeful. Jonah stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "What now?" he asked, his voice soft. Lyra smiled, the weight of the universe no longer pressing down on her. "Now we find our own path." And with that, the Valkyrie disappeared into the stars, leaving behind the echoes of a galaxy forever changed.